the excited chatter and discussion of clearly, hi Katie, sustainable business talk going on here at the Loft. So welcome everybody. My name is Jenny Mish. I am newly returned to Montana, to Missoula, after 9 years away, and I am serving now as the interim director of the Sustainable Business Council, which is very exciting. So if you have ideas and thoughts about how the Sustainable Business Council could better serve the community, I'm all ears. And we're in a period of exciting transition and development. So nice to have you all here. This evening is an evening called a Sustainability Shot. It's a series of presentations that we have. It's a concentrated shot of information on a narrow topic related to sustainability and sustainable business. The series, we have 3 presentations this fall, and this is the second one. The first one was on alternative employee benefits a month ago, and the next one will be on November 5th, and it will be with Dave Martin, who's Vice President of Blackfoot Communication.
I don't know where Rod goes. Okay, so I'll just speak loudly while he's working on that. The topic of that will be greening the bits of information on and communications highway. Greening the bits on the information and communications highway. So that will be an event about IT, and sustainability and how businesses can reduce their IT impacts. Thank you very much, Rod. So I also wanted to say that the SHOT series this fall has been sponsored by a number of wonderful members and community businesses, including the Food Tonight is sponsored by Tiny Creek Market and Big Sky Brewing and the Missoula Winery. We also have sponsors, the Family Dental Group, Portico Real Estate. We have Katie in the audience, thank you. Sinelco Solar, of course, the Loft of Missoula here, Cherry Creek Radio, Missoula Independent. The Missoula is independent. And Energetics is another sponsor. So thank you very much to our sponsors. Do we know what's going on here? Should I use the other one? Well, there's the one that Jill.
There isn't another one. Okay. They got rid of the old one. I don't know.
So tonight's topic is about the community's response to the issue of climate change. And we have interesting timing, of course. We just on Sunday had a cyclone that caused 500,000 people to evacuate from their homes in India. And a week before that, there was a storm, a huge winter storm in South Dakota that killed up to 20,000 or so head of cattle because it was such an early storm, and it was so they got wet, and then wind, and then snow, and they couldn't survive that. And so here and also like a month before that, in mid-September in Colorado, there was a 1,000-year flood that caused $2 billion worth of property damage. So these severe weather events are nearby and far away, and they all affect us. Here in Missoula, we have 3 rivers, and all 3 of them were closed to fishing at least during parts of the summer this year because of low water flows, and that's also connected to the changes in the climate. The low flows affect the economy as well because people plan their vacations differently when they don't think that they're going to be able to do the activities that they're expecting. Roughly 1 in 5 private sector jobs in Missoula County is related to tourism. And low flows also change things like property values. So one realtor in the Bitterroot Valley says that when selling seasons are cut short because of fire, because of changes in fishing season and so forth, it really translates into a significantly diminished economy. So this is a business issue as well as a humane issue that we all care about as the climate is changing in our environment. Tonight we have Our topic is preparing for the road ahead with a community response to climate change. And I'm thrilled to introduce Jill Alvin, who is the outreach coordinator for the Clark Fork Coalition, which I'm sure many of you are aware that the Clark Fork Coalition has been working hard for many years to protect the water resources and the whole Clark Fork watershed and other resources as well. Jill directs the Engage program, which is the outreach programs of the Clark Fork Coalition. That includes volunteer events, workshops, learning activities, continuing education courses, youth courses, and climate change activities. So Jill is actually on the City of Missoula's Climate Action Task Force, which is about City of Missoula planning for climate change, but she is also, and what she's going to talk with us about, the director, or one of the key leaders of a coalition, which is a community-wide response to climate change, an climate adaptation working group for our greater region. She also is clearly a nature lover. She's the president of the Rattlesnake Creek Watershed Group, and she's on board for the Clark Fork Market, and we all love those things too. So I'm delighted to introduce to you Jill Alvin.
Thank you, Jenny, for that warm welcome.
She's got it on.
I have it on.
Is it working?
So I'm glad the mic's not working. I really don't like microphones, but can everyone hear me? Everyone hear me? Okay. So thanks again for having me and coming and attending. This is a great group, great numbers. And I'm curious to hear where folks are coming from. How many local business owners do we have? Okay, and then it looks like we have a fair number of students. Okay. Folks from conservation organizations. Okay, social services. Anything? Okay, good. Yeah, so a mix. So maybe just like 30 seconds, let's spout off why we're interested in this issue. So maybe we could hear from someone from the business community. Why is climate change important to you? Who's going to go? Or I'm going to call on John.
I can't. No.
No?
It'll take me an hour.
Are you going to do your job?
It's important to me. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Okay, great. So thinking ahead to their lives, what their quality of life would be like. Okay. How about some of the students? Why are you interested in climate change or here tonight?
This is a good path in career options, doing sustainable business.
Okay, great. Yeah.
I think climate change just affects so many things that we all love about this community, that we feel such a deep relation to nature. It's important to take care of it for its sake and for ours.
Yeah, great. Other folks? We had some people from the conservation community.
Systems collapse.
Systems collapse. That's your motivating factor.
It's awfully global.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm interested in localization.
Okay. Great.
Local economy.
Local solutions. Okay. Great. Anybody else want to share why they came tonight? Okay. So what I've prepared, as Jenny referenced, a few weeks ago, actually it was close to a month ago now, a select group of folks, an organizing committee, worked to put together a community climate summit for Missoula. And this was an invitation event. We worked hard to identify decision makers, movers and shakers in the community who we thought could really contribute to a cross-sector discussion on climate change. And the event was extremely successful. It was on September 25th. We brought over 100 people together. I was personally just very pleased with the number of folks we had in attendance and blown away by the response and the willingness of folks to participate in this kind of conversation. Before I get to that part tonight, what I wanted to do is provide a little bit of context insofar as why the Clark Fork Coalition is choosing to work on climate change outreach and some of the efforts that occurred leading up to the summit. You know, it didn't just happen out of nowhere. There were some contributing factors. Also, I want to be pretty informal, so if people have questions or comments or things they want to add, please just shout it out, raise your hand, whatever's easiest for you. That's fine. Am I going the right way? Okay, so climate change. And we've referenced this already in the conversation, but stands to have tremendous impacts on our way of life here in western Montana. Impacts to agriculture, natural resources, local economies, recreation. So why is the Clark Fork Coalition so interested in this? Why have we been working on climate change outreach? Our mission at the Clark Fork Coalition is the restoration and protection of the Clark Fork watershed, which, as you can see here, forms the headwaters, the northern headwaters of the Columbia River system. It's a critical water system. We are a headwaters state, so protection of water quality is really important here in western Montana. It's a 22,000 square mile area with over 350,000 miles of rivers. So the coalition's mission is threefold. One is protection. We work to protect the river, to identify potential threats to water quality, water quantity, clean, abundant water, and to work to mitigate for those threats through a variety of efforts, including advocacy and outreach. We also have a vibrant restoration program. How many folks have been over to the Milltown area recently? Yeah, pretty amazing restoration story right in the backyard of Missoula. The Milltown Dam, which blocked the confluence of the Clark Fork and Blackfoot rivers for years, has been removed, and tons of contaminated sediment that had piled up behind that dam are now gone. Now we're looking ahead to the upper Clark Fork, where there's a lot of restoration work still to be done, and we have 5 folks now working primarily in the field on restoration efforts, and I can talk more about that if people have questions, but
I do.
yes.
Can you explain the definition of the upper Clark Fork?
Yes. Yep, thank you. Is from the Clark Fork headwaters. Does anyone know which 2 creeks form the headwaters of the Clark Fork? Silver Bow and Warm Springs. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So where those 2 creeks come together, the confluence of those 2 creeks is the beginning of the Clark Fork, and then the upper Clark Fork is defined until where the Milltown Dam used to be, the confluence of the Blackfoot and the Clark Fork rivers. That area is the largest Superfund site in the country. There has, decades of mining, pollution, and damage. That Superfund complex was broken up into 3 distinct areas: the Milltown cleanup, which has finished; the Silver Bow cleanup, which is also complete; and now there's close to 50 river miles on the main stem in between. That cleanup has just commenced this year.
So I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but I'm think preemptively and also historically to draw from history. So what were the causes of that pollution?
Yep. So Butte, America, the city of Butte, was the richest town on earth, right? For years and years, provided copper, munitions, essentially fueled World War II to an extent, right? The Allied effort. Back before stringent environmental laws were in place, there were repeated pollution problems because of mining, and flood events sent a number of tailings downstream. Those tailings piled up behind Milltown Dam and also were deposited in the floodplain and riverbanks of the Clark Fork River, creating what are essentially dead zones. They're called slickens, which is just contaminated areas of ground. So through the Superfund cleanup, they're going to cart all of that out and restore the riverbank and floodplain.
But the pollution is both airborne and waterborne.
No, it's a waterborne pollution. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So the third aspect of our programs is engage. This is our newest program area. This is our education and outreach initiatives. So the Clark Fork Basin is a big place, and we need to connect people with the ongoing recovery, with the story of our waterways. We can't do it alone. So we, at the Clark Fork Coalition, we really see climate change as something that impacts all of our works. It has the potential to reverse decades of restoration gains, the cleanup that has happened by exacerbating issues. It is another threat to clean and abundant water, and it also holds economic threats for local communities who depend on rivers as community assets. So in 2008, it's been over 5 years, we commenced our Climate Action in the Clark Fork program with the release of a report called Low Flows Hot Trout. And we did a lot of outreach surrounding this report. And essentially the reason that I feel that the report was successful is that we didn't talk about the origins of climate change, the human caused nature of climate change. We didn't sort of dive into that. What we did was look at 50 years of data and observations and how we are seeing change in the Clark Fork watershed. Shifts in stream flow, changes in runoff, changes in precipitation, changes in temperature. We rolled out this information nationally and regionally and opted to focus on a more regional outreach effort to prepare for the impacts of what the data was showing. So this, in turn, all the outreach surrounding our 2008 report led to a community workshop that we co-hosted back in 2011. So this was prior even to this year's summit, where we brought folks together to talk about what they valued about living in this community and strategies for preparing for the expected impacts of climate change. So the first question for those participants, and questions I think for everyone when we begin to think about these issues, are what matters most. So I'll just ask the room. Why do you live here? Why do you have your business here? Why have you chosen to dwell here, have your family here in western Montana, Missoula County? Can be
accessibility to the outdoors.
Yeah.
Sense of community.
Sense of community. Mm-hmm. Others?
Close to Glacier.
Close to Glacier, yeah.
The university.
The university. Yeah.
Beauty of the community.
Mm-hmm. So these, what you've all just said, were echoed by the folks in the attendance. High quality of life, natural resources, and that sort of intangible sense of community that came up in those discussions as well. Local food. People really like local food, local markets. So then we looked at that workshop, we looked at what the science is telling us. Again, western Montana expected to get warmer, and has gotten warmer from 1950 on. So this graph is showing average air temperature from 1950 to 2006 with a near 2-degree increase in Missoula. Annual snowfall over the past 50 years or so is a decrease. So the climate change precipitation models, are the scenarios are variable, right? But one thing that's kind of constant is that more precipitation is falling as rain instead of snow. Total precipitation models kind of vary, but the snow pack on average on April 1st has decreased by 30% in the past 50 years.
In the past what?
50 years. So changes in snowpack and less snowpack lead to changes in flows. So earlier runoff typically with decreased snowpack, and that's been witnessed as well. This is a chart showing runoff on the Blackfoot River. The green is in 2007, and you can see it's earlier than the average period of record there. Warmer stream temperatures on average. This data is from Rock Creek, which is a blue ribbon trout stream, for those of you that like to trout fish. I know I do. And when you see the purple color there is showing more days of higher stream temperatures over 70 degrees. And those warmer temperatures favor non-native species, typically brown trout, as opposed to our native trout species. So back to the workshop, folks had a chance to look at the science, and all of this is available on our website, and I did bring a couple copies to share. I'm going to stay away from that speaker. But what was really interesting is folks had a chance to look at socio and economic data as well. We had a partner in play, Headwaters Economics, who prepared a look at the economy of Missoula County. I find this research to be really valuable. I continue to use this in my work today, so I'm happy to share this link with folks. But just a few snapshots that kind of stand out. Service-related occupations, so essentially occupations not having to do with farming, mining, construction, a couple others, make up the majority of our jobs here in Missoula County. 18 individuals, the status from 2010, 18% of individuals are below the poverty line. 23% of individuals in 2010 had no health insurance. Another interesting piece when thinking about adapting to changes is that over half of the land in Missoula County is under federal or state management. So that's going to require an intense amount of collaboration in preparing. So vulnerabilities, economic vulnerabilities identified through this process. Again, that high quality of life, the reason that we're living here could be at risk. Impacts to the service-related industry, which again make up over 70% of jobs in Missoula County. Higher energy and food prices anticipated to have impacts locally. Water vulnerability, invasive species, which invasive species stand to have ecologic as well as economic impacts as well. So major risks identified by the community at that time were species shifts, wildfire, drought, no water in the streams, flooding, shifts in runoff timing, and then the local impact of global change. People kind of picked up on this idea of climate refugees and thinking about climate change as a growth issue as well, that this is already a very desirable place to live, and as different areas of the country become less desirable, is it going to make Western Montana even more so than it already is? So keep quiet to your friends about Missoula. So the group had over 100 recommended actions, and those actions, again, this was put together in 2011, are being implemented today to a degree. Things that stand out, especially in the water realm, which is what I'm most familiar with, the Clark Fork Coalition has a robust in-stream flow restoration program. The U.S. Forest Service, the Clark Fork Coalition, and some private contractors have been partnering on an ongoing watershed vulnerability assessment on the Lolo National Forest. So taking a look at which tributary streams, which creeks might be most vulnerable to decreased flows, decreased precip, and this overall scenarios that are anticipated, and then that info can be used to inform management strategies. So
in those researches, are they also measuring toxins such as mercury levels and things like that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. If it's not a part of that particular study, I'm imagining that would be layered on, ultimately to inform those management decisions. But I'm not sure if it's part of the vulnerability assessment. I believe that more has to do with stream temp, flow, quantitative data like that. I'm gonna keep plugging away here. So after that workshop, which was in 2011, in early 2012, the Clark Fork Coalition, we sat with our report of recommended strategies and actions, which are here and also available on our website, and thought, okay, so where do we go from here? We have 100 plus strategies recommended from the community. A lot of these are already ongoing. A lot of these projects are already underway. There are adaptation initiatives underway. There are mitigation strategies at local government levels. Like, how can we begin coordinate these efforts and enhance what's going on, share learning? So we identified the first next step as bringing together representatives from programs and projects that were ongoing. So we formed what we call the ADAPT Working Group, and it's made up of close to 12 individuals representing various sectors in our community. We have a representative from the Forest Service, local conservation groups, Montana Audubon, Alternative Energy Resources Organization, the City of Missoula, Community Food and Agriculture Coalition. We have a local landowner. This group was formed at the outset as a peer learning network. So a place where folks can come together, talk about climate change, talk about communication strategies around climate change. What's working kind of from that broader perspective insofar as, okay, what's the reception to the work that you're doing? What are your challenges? Where are your roadblocks? And sharing info and trying to move things forward. We talk a lot about fundraising and trying to garner money in the group. it became pretty obvious as the year progressed that people really wanted to sink their teeth into something more and really just keep moving a lot of things forward, implement even more ideas from the community report, but also to engage others that weren't in the room. And that's been, definitely a challenge from a climate change planning perspective, is engaging quote-unquote non-traditional allies. So folks who maybe climate change planning isn't in the lexicon, isn't in sort of the driving motivation behind strategic plans or their goal setting for the year or coming year. So how do we get more of this outreach out there? So we landed on the Missoula Community Climate Summit. And so I want to kind of stop here and spend some time and maybe go back and forth with you guys a little bit. But there were a lot of motivations going into this. One was we wanted to broadcast, to showcase these ongoing efforts, adaptation, mitigation, to the larger community. There's a lot going on. As anyone who lives in Missoula knows, on any given weekend or weeknight like tonight, there are volunteer opportunities, there are workshops, there are learning activities, and many of those are oriented around sustainability. So how do we bring all that together, showcase what's going on, maybe begin to share resources, leverage some activities to help others. So that was definitely one motivating factor behind the summit, is bring folks together from different sectors, different industries across the community and share what's going on. The second was to provide a space for people to share ideas, again in that cross-sector format. So this deliberative dialogue model listed there has been modeled at the University of Montana. And I should pause here and say that I by no means was working alone on this effort. The ADAPT working group is a phenomenal group of folks. And my co-leader in this was Amy Sillenberg from Montana Audubon and Nikki Fear from the University of Montana. And Nikki has modeled campus conversations around climate change. She's hosted 2 of those, and she shared her deliberative model with us. So basically, and I know we have a couple folks here who participated in the day, but people had an opportunity to sit at a table with a moderator and share their big idea for climate change, and to kind of go around in a circle and work off of each other. The second piece I want to speak to is was the invite portion, because not only did we want to share learning, but we wanted to inspire action. So action requires action makers, decision makers, people who have the ability to influence the community, to make decisions, to shift things forward. So we tried to be very strategic about putting an invite list together and thinking about the best ways to get those movers and shakers in the room. So thankfully, this effort was our brainstorming around this planning process was simultaneously occurring right around when the city of Missoula passed its Conservation and Climate Action Plan for municipal operations. So the city's mitigation plan, their plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the mayor has been tremendously supportive of climate action planning and has been on board from the start, and has always been interested too in the what he calls the phase 2, the next step, and bringing this out to the community. So we were able to partner with the mayor and utilize his influence to invite a lot of really great people to the summit, and we had over 100 people there this year. And I know we have a couple folks here who were there that day, so if you guys want to share your experience, that would be great. So it's not just me talking about it. But in the feedback we've received since the event, a lot of, when we asked, well, why did you come? Why did you want to come and talk about climate change? And they said, I was invited. I was invited by someone I knew, by a colleague that I respect. The mayor invited me. My friend at the university invited me. So again, it's this, okay, so if we create that space, if we ask people to participate in the dialogue, maybe it's not so hard in a sense. Yeah.
I just want to speak to that, creating the space. I was a note taker for that event.
Oh, yeah.
And it really did just bring anyone who is kind of timid about the climate change deal with either a business aspect or just a community aspect, and creating that space was really inviting to them to come and speak or come and just listen as well. So I
Good, I'm
loved
glad.
that event. Thank you for putting that on.
Oh, thank you. You look familiar, now I know why. Great, thank you. So I created this little, I did this afternoon, I created this little tag cloud because, well, there's a lot of data to go through and a lot of information to go through following the summit. We have over 50 pages of notes from all the different tables with everyone's ideas for action. And priorities they've emphasized and where they want to see our community energy focused. And our organizing committee is trying to go through a very mindful process of organizing that information and then reflecting that back at the attendees and determining next steps. But I started here just with some big emerging themes that popped out from this. Big ideas. Folks had the chance to share their big ideas, which sort of ran the gamut between we need more education on climate change, we need to get our youth involved, to we need a more robust recycling program, we need renewable energy sources. Transportation was huge. Lots of tables, people talked about transportation solutions. The Mountain Lion Levy came up. The two exciting pieces for me are at the top there. We had over 120 folks in attendance, and 70 people want to stay involved in community response to climate change. So now is the hard part. So like I mentioned, we have an incredible amount of information from this summit. More big ideas, big ideas that are similar to the community recommendations that came out of the ClimateWise report, but are also much different too. And because of the folks that were there, again, we had leaders in economic development, business leaders, university agency folks, et cetera. There is a little bit more of an economic emphasis in some of the ideas, which will be interesting to dive into. So we've decided that the best step moving forward is going to be to create a website to house all of this information, as opposed to putting together another report, where a document can be sort of inherently hierarchical, with this comes first, this comes second, and I think it's important not to reflect that sense, but to have everything sort of out in the open and let a user explore. We're also going to be doing a very, very short post survey asking people specifically what climate action projects you are working on and who you're working with. And then our group is going to work to create a visual. So kind of similar to that tag cloud, really show the projects that are really big right now and who's working on them to sort of let that network, that network of folks sort of emerge organically. At least that's the hope. We need people to respond to that quick survey first. Because it's tricky, right? I mean, this is community organizing. This is how do you move things forward. And so we want to begin working on projects and begin implementing big ideas, but that core organizing part moving forward, that vision for the community is important too. So we think we need to meet again. So, but this time we're going to be organizing more of a social, kind of similar to tonight, probably won't even be quite as formal as tonight, where we'll begin to talk about next steps and what this might look like. How will we organize work on some of these projects, and how will we enhance this network moving forward. So I'm going to stop there.
For me to step in?
Yes. And I'm sorry if I went too long.
I think I would, there it is. Hi. So thank you, Jill, for that wonderful explanation of all the work that's been done to date. The way these shots are designed is to have a shot of, narrow concentration of information and then Q&A discussion. So this is the discussion time. So I'm sure there's lots of things floating around in your heads, and I'm sorry I didn't prompt you earlier, but we'd love to hear from you. What are your questions and comments?
This was a lot of shots.
Yeah. One of the things I liked about the conference was that you guys rigged the game. And you sat certain people at certain tables.
Yeah.
So there was a real broad cross-section at each table, people from government, people from environment, people from business. And I'm just wondering if you're gonna be doing this network building, how do you keep that happening so people don't just go to their little corner of the room and not pay attention to the other stuff?
I think that is a huge question, and I don't exactly have an answer for you, except to say that I really think the structure moving forward is going to be important. And I am an action-oriented person. I like to just get things done, move forward, boom, boom, boom. But if we start spinning and going on different projects and people working on specialized things that they know a lot about, that sort of that momentum and that a little bit of that energy and that sharing, that community sharing piece is lost. I agree with you. So I don't have a system I can share with you that we're going to utilize right at present, but these are definitely things that we're thinking about. Yeah.
Might I ask how many people attended the original one?
The climate summit the month ago was, yep, about 100. A month ago, I think she said, yeah, about 120.
Jenny, would you have the people who ask questions use the mic? Jill is actually mic'd for MCAT,
Okay.
but nobody else is. So if they use that mic, then MCAT will pick up their question.
And what that means is that to ask a question, you need to come up here so that you don't get feedback. However, it's not that hard.
I can help because I have the free area.
So who would like to distribute a comment or question?
Well, I have another
Please.
question.
Would you come up? It's going to give feedback.
Yeah, you just have to.
You want me to come up?
I think if it's far enough away, it's probably okay. You just need to be far enough away for feedback.
We're just in the living room, it's just us.
Two questions.
Yeah.
I
could switch. Why don't we switch?
Education.
Yeah.
What's being done in the school system, since I think that educating the youngest children about climate change and is so important. And the other is there any effort to try and see what other communities are doing so we don't try and reinvent the wheel? Because I know there's some great efforts on some other communities out there.
Yep. Great questions. I'll answer the second one first. We are doing research on what other communities are up to, and in fact, in preparation for the summit, we produced a resource guide that did offer just kind of a snapshot of what some different communities are up to, especially across the West, and we're going to continue to enhance that on the website. So I think the website is a good place to house a lot of that information and update it, because I agree with you. On the one hand, I think we're special here, and we like to think of ourselves as special and unique, and no one maybe can tell us how to do things, right? Or maybe that's the sentiment. But and it does need to be a locally driven effort, but there are invaluable lessons learned, out there in communities that are similar to ours, in demographics and location. Education, I also agree, it is big, and I know that there are efforts, and specifically, certain teachers that are really working on infusing their science curriculum with some climate change awareness and education activities. But I am not familiar with any planned effort. I do know that the public schools are currently, I think they're looking at their standards right now. Is anyone involved in public school education? Or I think they're doing like a 5-year planning process at present. And they're definitely listed as a group to engage with. Yeah, and there are other conservation organizations. I know, like, for example, the Watershed Education Network in town that they've been looking into some climate change education models as well.
More questions?
Well, I would like to say something. Can you hear me okay?
It's MCAT that can't hear you, it's not the audience.
Oh, okay.
So you can step
if I go
next to Jill.
closer to...
Yeah, come stand by me. Right here.
First off, I want to say thank you to the Clark Fork Coalition
Thank you.
for keeping this alive.
Thanks.
Secondly, I would like to ask, has there been in the other localities around the country that you're aware of who are also addressing this issue, an acknowledgement that perhaps Montana communities, such as Missoula, are in a preservation mode of what we have versus those communities who have already had significant degradation of their environment. That it makes it, to me, it makes it two different scenarios to address. Is that
And so your
being looked at?
question is, do other communities recognize our position or where we're coming from?
Yes, right, that Missoula could actually be a prototype for how to preserve what they have versus have to go to the point at which degradation has occurred and now.
Yeah. You know, I'm not sure. I think we'd have to reach out to other communities and survey them and ask them what their perception of our community is. But I agree with you that this is a tremendous opportunity for our community to really model some solutions, you know, to try things out, to wade the waters, to see what works, see what doesn't work. And there's opportunity for us to showcase the work that we're doing while we're doing it so that others can learn and we can function in a leadership role.
And also from a leadership role within the national context is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think there's room for that. Yeah.
This isn't exactly a question, it's more like a comment.
Yeah.
Having lived here a long time ago and then returned recently, the sense of community continues. It's even stronger now because there are a lot of people here who probably have only moved here in the last 20 years. And as Rebecca mentioned, we haven't seen, quote, the degradation maybe that some communities have, only because we are so caught up in our nostalgia and our history and our love of community. There are dozens upon dozens of active conservation groups in this area. My first thought was herding cats, trying to get us, the groups who all have a vision for what they think needs to be done, to coalesce and come together in a unified manner, kind of undermines the concept of organic. The idea that when we talk about being organic versus contrived, I'm probably using the word in a way that may seem pejorative, but I'm not intending it as such. But when we start to impose our structures and not allow for the organic, again, it's that herding cats thing. So I'm hoping that whether it's the mayor, whether it's this, you know, what other form can be most useful. This would be a useful form, sustainability, you know, a business community, trying to get an umbrella that recognizes what the big picture is and how many groups are already working toward that. And I know I'm rambling, but the idea is trying to bring together an umbrella where we can actually get a structure going.
Yeah. Your comment makes me think of a couple of things. It makes me think of Transition Town, right, and their efforts and everything they've been striving toward. And also that we're trying to preserve what we have. And it is interesting to think about, especially from the perspective of the Clark Fork River, how much that river has been through. And Missoula, we used to turn our backs from the river. The river was a dump. You know, there were periods when it ran red. And that has turned around. You know, businesses clamor to be by the river. You know, the Clark Fork River Market wanted to be next to the river. The river is on the rebound. So at the same time, there's this really remarkable example in our backyard of we have made something better together as a community.
Well, I have a comment. I was privileged to attend this summit as a moderator, and in addition to working with the SBC here in Missoula, I'm working with a startup in Colorado that has basically stopped everything else. It's a food system startup. It develops resources for food shed supply chain development for across the country, really, but based on what they've learned in Colorado. And in their case, they really had to stop everything they were doing on developing local food businesses and financing sources for local food businesses and so forth to create a disaster relief fund, because the flooding that happened produced so much damage to farmland and irrigation canals in particular. And so one of the things, they've been working for over a decade there, building multi-stakeholder support for developing the food system in a sustainable way and locally. And I could talk a lot more about that, but the point is that once this flood came, they realized that they not only had to really rely heavily on the stakeholder network that they had built, but they needed a whole lot of new relationships that they hadn't built with dozens of canal companies, for example, because the ditches are owned by different groups and so forth. So this is a nearby state example of why creating a foundation of multi-stakeholder relationships is in itself creating a resiliency for the community, and our sense of community here in Missoula is part of what allows us to do this, and maybe perhaps, to speak to Rebecca's request, part of what we can model for other communities.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
Great.
So I almost didn't raise my hand because this microphone is way intimidating. Okay, so first of all, I just have a comment. It's really amazing to attend a talk like this because I've been taking a class at the university from Eva Hasselman, I'm sure many of you know her, and it's called Community and Environment. And I just love how the concept and the principle of this talk is how we're, negotiating, working through a challenge as a community. Because a community, as a definition, is a set of people that are interdependent upon each other and they have common goals. And opening, a forum for communication where non-traditional allies can get together, realize that common goal, and then work in civic capacity to make things possible is just incredible. We've been living here for, not me, but so many people have been living here for so many years. We know Missoula best. We care about Missoula most. We are the people as a community that will make the most tangible difference. So, incredible talk. I just want to say that. And then, I have a question. So, something you touched on that I'm super interested in that is very close to my heart is youth environmental education. And I actually do work with MUD and their youth education program. And in our curriculum, we don't discuss not directly, we don't have a direct curriculum for climate change. We maybe talk about it inadvertently. And I've also volunteered with WEN, so as a school stream monitor, and they don't have anything that directly addresses climate change either. So do you think it'd be possible to sit down and speak with both organizations about the community that or about the information that you've gathered, and maybe have them collaborate on teaching those lessons to children, because they're the most important audience we can give that to.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And we should stay in touch and try to figure out how to move some of this forward.
I would love to see some more climate change curriculum in education.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to involve administrators and teachers, right, and think about their standards and their set of goals and how to work in the system and fulfill the needs that they have, while introducing what can be political and inflammatory topics. So things like introducing surveys of teachers first to sort of figure out, okay, so what exactly is happening first, and then sort of taking that to inform some next steps could be. Great. These are just ideas, but
love
yeah.
to be involved in
Yeah,
education.
yeah, great.
Absolutely.
Great.
We've had a brave model of how to brave the microphone. It's available to anybody who would like it next. Great, Claudia.
I'm a little leery of that microphone. Somewhere else.
It works right here. Just go on. And I'll hold it for you.
Okay. One very concrete way for ordinary folks to network, especially in uncertain times, is the time bank. Transition Missoula and Jeanette Rankin Peace Center have started a time bank. I think it was late June or July, and it's up and running. If you Google MissoulaTimeBank.org, it costs $25 to join if you have the money. If you don't have the money, it's volunteer 3 hours to the time bank. And then you put in the computer what you're offering, whether it's cleaning somebody's house, doing yard work, offering counseling, offering computer work. I put in my jam and relish that I make. And then you look down and see what's offered. And I got a gal to come and help me clean my patio and my windows that had been waiting for a long time. Another person is offering acupuncture. So, and it really has had a good response, but what it needs is more people to actually use it, to actually, put in what you are offering and actually, use some of what's offered. And I might mention too that you get a free hour for joining.
Oh, great. Well, that's another example of how Missoula is connected and building community and creating exchange. Because this is the Sustainable Business Council and the economic implications kind of came to the fore as one of the kind of key themes, I would like to just see if there are any business people or people who would like to speak from more of a business perspective about anything about how this affects your business, what your concerns are, how you'd like to see this go forward. I'm putting you on the spot. It's an invitation, not a requirement. Did we have one? Great.
Yeah.
We have not terrified the audience. I
Really drive to talk into this room too.
It's a new mic. Yeah, so please stand over here.
You can stand by me.
Stand by her.
Yeah. Come over here so you don't get out in the glare.
So sorry,
So I just think from an economic standpoint that as we continue to model ourselves as a community that's on the forefront of addressing the potential adaptation and mitigation issues, that we're going to be able to somehow moderate this mass population growth that you were talking about. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but the fact that the Rocky Mountains are supposed to triple in size with impending climate change, right? Because people are going to move here. We have space and clean water, right? So I think as the more that we model the ability to own our own water company, provide our own energy, grow our own food, develop our own economy that's relying on local resources, I think that we're going to be able to sort of move into the 21st century with these climate change challenges more thoroughly. That's what my read is on it. And I thank you for the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. I promise I won't turn on the microphone.
That helped us stay awake.
I can move this around.
Yeah, all you have to do is hug Jill. You will be heard.
I'll be on the mic.
So,
It's a new mic, sorry. We're just getting used to it.
So thank you everyone for coming. I hope you will all stay tuned as this, really innovative and cutting edge work continues to unfold. Probably the website will be a great way to do that. I want to say a deep thanks to Jill for coming today. Give you a
thank you.
gift, which is a tote bag from the
Thank you.
SBC. Thank you so much. Okay. And we love our members and our community, so please stay tuned. Remember, November 5th is our next Sustainability Shot. Please support our sponsors, and look forward to seeing you at the next one. Eat more food. There's more food and drink. Stay, talk, discuss.
I left some cards over on the counter if anyone wants to grab a card and give me a call.
Jill's cards are on the counter.